Thank you, Jeff. So this is work done by my undergraduate student, Prashant, who unfortunately can't be here, so I have to do the talk, including doing the slides. I'm not used to that anymore. So, virtualization, of course, everyone does it, everyone knows about it. It's becoming increasingly relevant in the embedded space, and a number of companies, including my own startup, have been selling hypervisors for ARM for embedded systems use for a while, and some of them are actually deployed, etc. So, under those circumstances, it's not surprising that ARM has followed what Intel and AMD have done and provide or start to provide hardware support for virtualization. So this is brand new. It was announced last September, and OK Labs got, like other partners, the simulated hardware access soon after. They expect to ship samples of silicon supporting this virtualization extensions late this year, and they expect products to be out in late next year. So this is also very recent stuff. At the moment, ARM internally have some cycle-accurate simulators we can't get our hands on, so all we had was a implementation of this hardware in a simulator that's not cycle-accurate, it's only functionally accurate. And we use this to what seems to us is the first hypervisor that is completely functional in the sense that it's able to support unmodified Linux binaries. The reason why we're fairly confident that it's the first one is that we ran into so many bugs in the simulator, which were acknowledged as bugs by ARM and later fixed, that we were obviously ahead of anyone else who was using the simulator. So, I assume most people are roughly familiar with virtualization. The basic idea is that you have an operating system which is running not on naked hardware but on top of a hypervisor, and the hypervisor must intermediate or emulate every access to direct privileged hardware features by this guest operating system in order to provide the solution of virtualization. So, for example, if some guest accesses some privileged CPU state which needs to be virtualized, then that must somehow invoke the hypervisor, which then emulates that state. The problem is that ARM, like original x86, is not what's called trap and emulate virtualizable, which means there is instructions that observe or modify a privileged state which do not trap. And therefore, just by taking the trap and doing the emulation, it's not possible to catch all the relevant cases that way. So that means we have to do what's called para-virtualization, meaning essentially hack the operating system source and replace these not sensitive, not trapping instructions by explicit traps, which then invoke the hypervisor. This is what's called para-virtualization, and it's all fine, and it's actually performance-wise fairly good. The problem is there's a significant engineering cost, right? It's very labor-intensive and error-prone to hack this OS kernel in order to run in a virtual machine. And this is why manufacturers then provide hardware support to actively make their architecture virtualizable and be able to run unmodified binaries. So the ARM virtualization extensions does what just about anyone does. They use a new privilege level. ARM has actually a few extra privilege levels, in particular the thing called monitor mode and secure and unsecure world. I'm not going to talk about that, but for those who are familiar with it, the new hypervisor mode applies only to the so-called non-secure execution, and it is in privilege level between the virtual kernel nodes and the monitor mode. This is, by the way, different from x86. In x86, they introduced this new VTX root mode, and that's actually orthogonal to the normal protection rings, whereas in ARM, it's strictly inside the hierarchy. It's a strictly more privileged mode than the original kernel mode. So what else do they provide? One of the most important things as far as performance is concerned is configurable traps. Normally, power virtualization massively outperforms binary or pure virtualization, because in pure virtualization, every sensitive instruction traps into the hypervisor, and that is of course very expensive. So what ARM does is support that by what's called configurable traps. So in a normal OS binary, when a user mode process causes an exception, for example, performs an explicit system call, then that would have to be redirected by the hypervisor to the kernel, and the return also has to go through the hypervisor. So you double your mode switches and etc. So what ARM does, and that's similar again to what the Intel does in x86, is provide this so-called configurable trap. So for each exception, you can configure whether it's supposed to be handled by the hypervisor or the guest, and for the syscall instruction, the normal syscall trap, the normal standard way is to have it handled by the guest, and then applications can perform system calls to the guest without invoking the hypervisor. So that's a big performance boost. What they also do is hardware support for instruction emulation, and this is really neat. So normally, when an instruction needs to be virtualized, it needs to be loaded, decoded, and emulated. I mean, this is basically what the hardware normally does. It fetches the instruction, it decodes it, and then it performs the operation. And instruction emulation for virtualization has to do that in software. The problem there is the instruction has actually already been fetched, right? It's been loaded in the instruction register and then triggered the fault. But it's not where we need it to interpret it. So that means it needs to be loaded in a normal CPU register, and that causes a cache miss because it has a normal load instruction, it gets loaded through the data cache, and even though the instruction is actually present in the instruction cache, we get a cache miss on the data cache and has to fetch it from the L2. So that makes this expensive, and also the whole decode thing, it tends to be very complicated, etc. And the actual instruction emulation is typically the easiest bit of the whole thing. It's only straightforward for the kind of instructions we need to virtualize. So what ARM has done, it essentially shortcut this thing. So it provides pretty much access to the work the hardware has already done, because the hardware has already decoded, fetched and decoded the instruction, and it makes this available in some extra registers which we can then access without having to load the instruction again. Doesn't work for all instructions, but for most of them, and allows us to really do instruction and emulation with really high performance. And the final major feature is again something as Intel has already done on x86, and that's support for virtual memory virtualization. So normally you have a user process operating. It has its own virtual address space, which by the guest operating system gets mapped onto a guest virtual address space, which then gets translated by the hypervisor using its own mapping into actual physical addresses. And what the TLB, of course, translates is directly guest virtual to guest to physical. And so this address translation needs to be constructed from both these page tables. And so the question is, how do we deal with the guest modifying its page tables? And the normal standard approach is that the hypervisor maintains what's called a shadow page table, which contains essentially the same information as the guest page table, but already the address is already translated from physical, it contains the direct translation from virtual to physical addresses. And when the guest executes, the hypervisor sets the hardware page table pointer to this shadow page table. Problem is it's very expensive to keep those in sync. Whenever the guest modifies its page table, it traps in the hypervisor, and the hypervisor has to follow up with this modification on the shadow page table. So what ARM does is essentially reduces the setting page table pointers. So there's now two hardware page table pointers for both of these translations, for virtual to guest physical, and for guest physical to guest to physical. And the hardware page table worker walks both of those page tables. Again, it's very similar to a so-called extended page table in extended state. And then the final